1998, a year suspended between eras, the smoke of the East and the West Coast battle still hung heavy. The losses of Tupac and Biggie were wounds too fresh to ignore, but hip-hop, restless, resilient, refused to die. Instead, it transformed. Out of tragedy came urgency. Artists weren't just making records, they were building legacies. They rapped like their lives depended on it because in many ways it did. 1998 wasn't just another year for hip-hop, it was a convergence. The underground sharpened its voices, the South demanded respect, women redefined the mic, lyricists reconnected rap to poetry, and the business, the very machinery of hip-hop, evolved into an empire blueprint. This was the year hip-hop could no longer be boxed in. It was the very year every corner of the map demanded to be heard. It was the year the culture grew up. By the time the clock turned to 1998, hip-hop was standing on uneasy ground. Just 2 years removed from Tupac and Biggie's deaths, the culture was still in mourning. The East versus West conflict had left scars, dividing communities, and raising the question, could hip-hop even survive itself? But hip-hop had never been about silence. It was about resilience. In the shadow of loss, a new hunger rose. Artists across the country stepped up, not just to make music, but to carry the torch and push the culture forward. 1998 became the year of renewal. Every coast, every region, every borough brought something to the table. And for the first time ever, hip-hop wasn't locked into two coast battles. It was expanding, sonically, geographically, spiritually. In New York, lyricism and hustler ambition fused into an unstoppable wave. In the South, funk and bounce grew into fully fledged movements. On the West Coast, innovators held their ground, while the underground carved out its own kingdom in college radio and indie labels. For fans, 1998 was overwhelming. Every week seemed to bring a new masterpiece, a new anthem, a new voice that demanded to be heard. It was the sound of a culture too big to be contained, rebuilding itself in real time. The storm had passed, but its aftermath gave birth to something greater. Hip-hop wasn't just recovering, it was exploding. And 1998 will prove to be the year where every voice, every style, every region came alive in a way the world had never seen before. This was the new landscape, the new ground zero for what would become the most important year in hip-hop history. In 1998, one album rose above the noise, an album that wasn't just about beats and rhymes, but it was about identity, motherhood, love, heartbreak, and truth. An album that carried hip-hop into new territory, unafraid to be soulful, unafraid to be vulnerable. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill wasn't just Lauryn's debut, it was her statement of independence. After the Fugees' meteoric rise with the score, the world expected another group project. Instead, Lauryn stepped away from Wyclef, away from the tensions, and put her own life into songs. The recording sessions took place in Kingston, Jamaica, inside the legendary Tough Gong Studios, a space once built by Bob Marley. Surrounded by live musicians, Lauryn fused soul, reggae, gospel, and hip-hop into a sound no one had ever heard before. But what made the record groundbreaking wasn't just its production. Through it, it was lush and layered. It was Lauryn herself. She was just 23 years old, a new mother, a woman stepping into a male-dominated industry and telling her story with complete honesty. To Zion was more than a song, it was a declaration. Lauryn poured her heart into a decision to keep her child, despite the pressure of an industry that told her motherhood would kill her career. With Carlos Santana's guitar crying in the background, she gave women in hip-hop something rare, a ballad of strength and sacrifice. And then came doo-wop, that thing. With its Motown-inspired horns and a message of self-respect, the single exploded, debuted at #1 on the Billboard's Hot 100. It was proof that Lauryn could dominate radio without abandoning her roots. But Miseducation wasn't just about hits. It was an education, literally. The interludes of a classroom discussion framed the album as a lesson, a dialogue between teacher and student about life, love, and responsibility. Lauryn wasn't just rapping and singing, she was teaching. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece, fans embraced it as a scripture. The album earned 10 Grammy nominations, and Lauryn made history as the first woman to win 5 in a single night, including Album of the Year, the first time hip-hop had ever taken home that honor. In a year where hip-hop was raw, aggressive, and competitive, Lauryn Hill chose a different path. She made an album that was spiritual, intimate, feminine, and fearless. She gave the world not just rap, but truth. And in doing so, she didn't define 1998, she defined a generation. For years, the South was an afterthought. Hip-hop was framed as the East Coast versus West Coast conversation. But in 1998, that changed forever. Atlanta and New Orleans, two cultural powerhouses, delivered albums that will shift the balance of an entire genre. On September 29th of 1998, Outkast released Aquemini, the title blending the zodiac signs, Aquarius for Big Boy, Gemini for Andre 3000, a symbol of two personalities, two visions in perfect balance. Aquemini was futuristic yet grounded in southern soul. It fused funk, gospel, blues, and psychedelic soundscapes with hard-hitting rap. Tracks like Rosa Parks carried bounce and banjo riffs, while Spooty Oodie Dopalicious delivered spoken word poetry over hypnotic horn section. But what set Outkast apart was vision. They weren't chasing radio trends, they were building a universe. In a year defined by gritty realism, Outkast leaned into surrealism. They painted the South not just as a stereotype, but as a creative epicenter with limitless possibilities. Critics hail Aquemini as one of the greatest hip-hop albums ever recorded, a bold statement of artistry that proved the South wasn't just knocking on the door, they were building their own house. The same year, on November 3rd of 1998, another Southern voice exploded onto the national stage. Juvenile, backed by Birdman, Slim, and Manny Fresh Production, released 400 Degreez. It was raw, unfiltered, unapologetically New Orleans. Fueled by the smash single, Back That Ass Up, the album turned bounce music into a national phenomenon. Juvenile's drawl, storytelling, and Manny Fresh's signature bounce beats captured the sound of a city, sweaty, playful, dangerous, and alive. But 400 Degreez wasn't just a party record, it was a business move. It marked Cash Money's transition from a local powerhouse to a national empire. With a $30 million distribution deal with Universal Records, the label rewrote the playbook for Southern independence. The success of 400 Degreez opened the floodgates for an entire roster: Lil Wayne, BG, Turk, and the Hot Boys, all ready to carry New Orleans onto the main stage. The South wasn't coming, it had already arrived. In 1998, the South proved it wasn't just part of the conversation, it was a conversation. From the cosmic vision of Aquemini to the street energy of 400 Degreez, Atlanta and New Orleans forced the world to pay attention. Hip-hop was no longer divided into East and West. It was a national and global movement, and the Southern storm was only the beginning. When hip-hop needed a savior in 1998, it didn't come polished, it didn't come flashy, it came from the dirt. From the streets of Yonkers, New York, one man rose with a voice so raw it cut through the air like broken glass. His voice was Earl Simmons, but the world knew him as DMX. His debut album, It's Dark and Hell Is Hot, released on May 13th of 1998, was a thunderclap, a primal scream in an era where hip-hop had been polished by shiny suits and radio-friendly hooks. DMX brought it back to pain, the struggle, the hunger, the raw essence of the streets. Produced largely by Degreez, PK, and Swiss Beats, the album was a journey into DMX soul, a place filled with demons, prayers, violence, and redemption. From the adrenaline-fueled Rough Riders anthem to the haunting introspection of Let Me Fly and Can I Feel It, DMX music was more than gangster rap. It was gangster poetry, a confession booth in rhyme form, where the devil and God battled for his soul line by line. What separated DMX, though, wasn't just aggression, it was vulnerability. He prayed on record, he admitted his flaws, he made millions of fans feel like they weren't alone in their darkness. The album debuted at number 1, proving the world was starving for something real, something unfiltered, and one summer, DMX became the new voice of hardcore hip-hop. And this was just the beginning. By the end of 1998, DMX would do the unthinkable, release a second album in the same year. Released on December 22nd of 1998, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood was released, and that too will go to be number 1. He became the first rapper in history to have 2 number 1 albums in the same calendar year. 1998 belonged to DMX. He was the storm, he was the rage. He was the pain of a generation that needed someone to scream for them. With his Dark and Hell Is Hot, DMX didn't just bring hardcore back, he redefined it. He proved that gangster rap wasn't dead, it was evolving into something deeper, something spiritual, something immortal. If DMX was the growl of the streets in 1998, then lyricists were his heartbeat. Bars mattered, rhymes mattered, and no year embodied that power of words like 1998. 3 monumental projects reminded the world that rap wasn't just about hustle or the flash, it was poetry, intellect, and discipline. Out of Brooklyn's underground came a duo who turned rap into a manifesto. Mos Def and Talib Kweli, together known as Black Star, released their debut album on September 29th of 1998. Mos Def and Talib Kweli are Black Star. At a time when mainstream rap was obsessed with platinum chains and radio hooks, Black Star spoke to something deeper. They were part of the raucous movement, a renaissance of underground hip-hop that valued consciousness over commercialism. Tracks like Definition and Respiration challenged the industry while honoring its roots, blending sharp lyricism with jazz, funk, and African pride. Their rhymes weren't just battle bars, they were blueprints for a generation looking for meaning in the music. Black Star didn't sell the most records in 1998, but their impact immense. They carved out space for a lane that would later birth comments like Water for Chocolate, The Roots' mainstream rise, and even paved the way for artists like Kanye West and Kendrick Lamar. But 1998 wasn't just about underground intellect, it was also about proving lyrical dominance on the biggest stage, and no one embodied that like Big Punisher, or Big Pun for short. Capital Punishment released in April 28th of 1998, Pun made history. He became the first solo Latino rapper to go platinum, but more than the sales, it was a skill. Pun was a technician, bending syllables, stacking multis, making entire verses sound like machine gun fire without losing rhythm. He was larger than life, funny, charming, yet razor sharp on the mic. Songs like Twins, Deep Cover 98 proved he could spar with legends. Tracks like You Ain't a Killer showed his dark storytelling. And his radio smash hit, Still Not a Player featuring Joe, made him a household name. Big Pun wasn't just a great MC. He was proof that hip-hop had no boundaries of race or background. He opened the doors for a generation of Latino rappers who will follow his path later on. In 1998, he stood shoulder to shoulder with giants and often rap circles around him. And then there was Gangstar. For nearly a decade, Guru and DJ Premier have been respected pillars of hip-hop, but in 1998, they dropped their masterpiece, Moment of Truth. Made under the shadows of Guru's legal battles, Moment of Truth was both confessional and prophetic. It was an album about accountability, redemption, and the code of the streets. Premier beats were surgical, dusty drums, jazz loops, chopped with perfection. Guru's verses were meditations, reflections, warnings. Songs like Work became street anthems. The title track Moment of Truth felt like scripture. And the song Above the Clouds, featuring Inspector Deck, was also a banger too. Moment of Truth was a guide to integrity in an era where selling out seemed inevitable. Moment of Truth went gold, but its true achievement was immortalized in Gangstar as one of the greatest duos in hip-hop history. In 1998, lyricism thrived. Whether it was conscious duos redefining black pride, Bronx Giants proving Latino excellence, or veteran duos elevating wisdom to art, the pen was alive, sharper than ever. Now, if the underground fought for the soul of hip-hop in 1998, the mainstream was fighting for its crown, and no one wore better than that year than Sean Carter, better known as Jay-Z. Just 2 years earlier, Jay had called himself the best-kept secret. By 1998, the secret was out. With Volume 2, Hard Knock Life, Jay-Z turned himself from respected hustler turned MC into a global superstar. It was the perfect storm. The title track flipped the Broadway musical into a street anthem, the boldest sampling move of the decade, and it worked. The song was irresistible, both hood certified and pop friendly. The album sold over 5 million copies, cementing Jay-Z as hip-hop's new business mogul in the making. But the genius was just in the music. It was in the maneuvers. Rockefeller Records, Jay's independent hustle with Dame Dash and Kareem Biggs Burke had found a way to thrive in a major label system without losing control. 1998 marked the shift. Hip-hop wasn't just about making rhymes anymore. It was about owning equity, ownership, branding. Jay-Z understood that better than anyone else in the game. He was building not just an album, but an empire. Songs like Money Cash Holes reminded fans Jay-Z could still play rough in the streets, but the bigger picture was clear. Jay-Z was putting himself beyond the block, beyond New York. He was aiming for the world. In 1998, Jay-Z didn't just win the charts, he redefined the playbook. He proved that hip-hop could dominate the mainstream without losing its edge, as long as he treated rap not just as an art, but as business. While the mainstream was chasing platinum plaques in 1998, another revolution was bubbling underneath the surface. Away from flashy videos and arena tours, the underground was alive, raw, uncompromising, and speaking directly to the true believers. This was the era of the underground renaissance. Independent labels like Rawkus, Fondalum, and Stone Throw were giving artists the freedom the majors could never. And in 1998, they dropped projects that reshaped the DNA of hip-hop. Though technically released the year before, Company Flow's Fun Crusher Plus was reissued in 1998 by Rawkus Records, making it the underground's flag. LP, Big Just, and Mr. Len carved out a new aesthetic, dystopian, noisy, anti-industry. Their sound was futuristic rebellion, the seed of what would later become Def Junks, and a new wave of experimental rap. Rawkus Records stood at the center of this underground movement. In 1998, they pushed projects like Lyricist Lounge Volume 1, a showcase of freestyle brilliance and collaboration, and sound bombing tapes that circulated like gospel among backpackers. These compilations weren't just music, they were community, proof that lyricism still had a home away from champagne and radio playlists. Across the country, collectives carried the same torch. In Oakland, the Hieroglyphics crew released Third Eye Vision, a double disc that proved independent rap could go big without radio. And in Philadelphia, the Roots continued carving out a unique lane with live instrumentation, building towards a mainstream breakthrough that was just around the corner. College campuses became the underground's battleground. CDs were passed hand to hand, zines printed reviews of obscure 12 inches, and backpack culture, oversized clothes, headphones, notebooks full of rhymes became a lifestyle. For those who felt disconnected from the glitz of the mainstream, the underground was home. 1998 made sure it was just a scene, it was a movement. Now, the underground didn't just compete with the mainstream, it redefined what hip-hop could be, a reminder that culture was bigger than the charts, that beneath the surface, the future was being written. Now, in 1998, a lot of blockbuster movies and hood films came out that year in 1998. Now, let's break down some of them that came out. When director Hype Williams, the man who already reimagined music videos, stepped into film, he brought hip-hop visuals with him. His debut, Belly, starred DMX, Nas, and Method Man, turned rappers into leading men. Critics were divided though. Some said Belly was all style, no substance, but to hip-hop heads, it was iconic. A time capsule of 1998's energy. The streets had their own movie, their own mythology, shots like a music video, but living forever on VHS and DVD. Elsewhere, hip-hop collided with cinema through Spike Lee's He Got Game, starring Denzel Washington and NBA rookie Ray Allen. It told the story of basketball, family, and redemption. Its soundtrack, fully helmed by Public Enemy, proved that rap could elevate film, not just as background noise, but as thematic power. Hip-hop was also now a full collaborator in cinematic storytelling. 1998 also marked the golden age of soundtracks. Rush Hour introduced Jay-Z Can I Get It, turning a film single into a Billboard smash. Dr. Dolittle featuring Aaliyah, Timbaland, and Genuine proving R&B and hip-hop could drive box office sales. Every blockbuster needed a soundtrack, and in 1998, those soundtracks belonged to hip-hop. Also, more movies that was released in 1998 were The Players Club featuring Jamie Foxx, Ice Cube, Bernie Mac, and Lisa Ray, and I Got the Hookup featuring Master P, Anthony Johnson, John Witherspoon, and Tommy Lister Jr. There was also Called Up featuring Bokeem Woodbine and Clifton Powell, Darren Scott, and Sidney Williams. Also, Slam premiered in 1998 featuring Saul Williams, Bonds Malone, and Sandra Son. Also, on May 12 of 1998, Jay-Z released his own film or musical drama, which is Streets Is Watching. Speaking of Jay-Z, he also had the biggest tour in 1998, which is called the Hard Knock Life Tour, featuring himself, Rockefeller Records, DMX, Rough Riders, Method Man and Redman, and much more artists and acts. Also, The Enemy of the State also premiered in 1998, featuring the one and only Will Smith, Gene Hackman, John Voight, and Regina King. Had Big featuring Dave Chappelle, How Stella Got Grew Back featuring the one and only Angela Bassett, Taye Diggs, Whoopi Goldberg, and Regina King as well. The Wedding Singer and The Waterboy also premiered in 1998. Also, on August 19th of 1998, Blade had premiered in theaters, directed by Stephen Norrington and starring Wesley Snipes as Blade and Ryan Reynolds as Hannibal King. Also, in June 5th of 1998, The Truman Show had premiered in theaters for the entire United States of America, starring the one and only Jim Carrey. And on August 5th of 1998, H-20 Years Later also premiered in theaters, starring Jamie Lee Curtis and of course LL Cool J, making him the first black man to survive a Michael Myers horror film. The whole movie too. He didn't die in the first 5 minutes, the first 20 seconds, none of that. He survived the whole movie. So shout out to LL Cool J. So from the gritty street tales to Hollywood blockbusters, 1998 proved that hip-hop wasn't just music. It was cinema. It was narrative. It was America's most influential art form, capable of selling out theaters just as easily as arenas. While hip-hop dominated streets, airwaves, and stages, the world outside music was producing its own legends, moments that would define a generation, and hip-hop was there, narrating it all. June 14th of 1998, Michael Jordan had already become a legend. He etched his final chapter with a shot that will be replayed forever, the Bulls' 6th championship win, the perfect ending to a dynasty. For hip-hop fans, the connection was undeniable. Music and sports moved in parallel, energy, rhythm, and storytelling. Jordan wasn't just an athlete, he was a cultural icon, one whose feats will be forever immortalized in rhyme and reference. Stars like Zidane, Petit, and Henry weren't just athletes. They were symbols of national pride, representing a mosaic of identities that mirrored the growing global awareness of hip-hop culture. The world watched as France made their way through the tournament, each match drawing attention from millions. Hip-hop across the globe took notice, with DJs and MCs in Europe, Africa, and America sampling the excitement into radio shows, mixtapes, and street anthems. Now, the final match of the whole tournament was just a match. It was a spectacle. France against the defending champions Brazil. Zidane had scored 2 goals, both headers from corner kicks, sealed the fate of the game. The 3-0 victory wasn't just a win for football. It was a statement of identity, culture, and possibility that a nation could rise against the odds on the world's biggest stage. When France won the World Cup in 1998, it was more than a tournament. It was a cultural pivot. Hip-hop, always aware of the global movements, absorbed the spirit, triumph, struggle, unity, and celebration. And while DJs spun on turntables and MCs rhymed in ciphers, the world itself had turned into one massive stage, and hip-hop was there to narrate it. Like any other industry, recognition mattered. Award shows, accolades, and media validation were the markers of influence, proof that the music, the hustle, and the movement had arrived. The 40th annual Grammy Awards reflected hip-hop's complex relationship with the mainstream. Puff Daddy, the era's most commercially dominant artist, received multiple nominations, yet the tensions were noticeable. Critics and underground heads debated whether the Grammys truly understood the genre. Hip-hop narratives had expanded from the streets to boardrooms, from mixtapes to radio. It demanded respect. The Grammys were the only one battlefield in a larger war for legitimacy and acknowledgement. Where the Grammys measured mainstream acceptance, the Source Awards measured credibility. 1998 was packed with moments that will become legendary. DMX's ferocious presence dominated the stage, the Lox asserting their dominance, and regional stars claiming their rightful place in hip-hop's hierarchy. The Source Awards weren't just award shows. They were ceremonies of culture, a place where the streets and the industry intersected, a proving ground where legacy was cemented. Commercially, 1998 was unprecedented. Jay-Z, DMX, Master P, Big Pun, and Outkast dominated the charts. Platinum plaques lined record store walls, proving that hip-hop could sell at a massive scale while retaining artistry. The message was clear. Hip-hop wasn't a passing trend. It was mainstream, undeniable, and unstoppable. From the streets of New York to the bounce-heavy blocks of New Orleans, hip-hop has solidified itself as a soundtrack of a generation. Ambitious, greedy, creative, and unapologetic. Artists weren't just releasing albums, they were creating legacies. DMX brought raw aggression and vulnerability. Jay-Z blended street smarts with business acumen. Outkast expanded the boundaries of Southern innovation, and Lauryn Hill proved that soulful introspection could dominate mainstream charts. The influence extended beyond music. Hip-hop inspired fashion, language, attitude, and ambition, becoming a cultural compass for millions. Independent labels flourished. Regional powerhouses proved that control, branding, and hustle mattered as much as talent. Artists began thinking like entrepreneurs, a shift that would define this 21st century hip-hop industry. The underground and mainstream weren't just coexisting, they were defining one another. Raucous, company flow, and Black Star nurtured lyricism and creativity, while Jay-Z, DMX, and Master P dominated airways and arenas. The tension and balance between these worlds created a dynamic, fertile ecosystem that propelled hip-hop into a new era. 1998 proved that hip-hop was unstoppable. It dominated charts, shaped culture, dictated fashion, and captured the imagination of the globe. The year was a masterclass in artistry, entrepreneurship, and cultural influence. Every beat, every rhyme, every hustle from that year laid the foundation for the decades to come. And while the world may continue to change, 1998 remains a benchmark. The year hip-hop became the heartbeat of a generation. From underground ciphers to arena tours, from small indie labels to global empires, from the streets of the Bronx to the Stadium of Paris, 1998 was more than music. It was culture, it was history, and it was legendary. Now, for this section in the video, we're going to be breaking down or going over every critical or essential or notable albums that were released in 1998. Now, for the first one up is Tupac Greatest Hits, his compilation album, which released on November 24th of 1998. This was the first major posthumous compilation album of Tupac's work. Coming out 2 years after his death, it was assembled by Marvel Entertainment, run by his mother, Afeni Shakur, Death Row Records, Interscope Records, and Jive Records. The album includes 21 previously released songs alongside 4 tracks that now have been appeared before: God Bless the Dead, Unconditional Love, Troublesome 96, and Changes. Some songs got remixed or had alternate versions or were edited for legal sample reasons. For example, California Love makes its first proper appearance on an album in its original mix via this release. Now, Tupac's greatest hits album was widely praised by critics and fans alike for how it captured the breadth of Tupac's career, both his political, social consciousness tracks and his street anthem hits. It debuted at number 5 on the US Billboard 200 and over time achieved diamond certification from the RIAA. Next up is Silk the Shocker. He released his album Charge to the Game on February 17th of 1998. This album was a commercial breakthrough for Silk the Shocker. It debuted at number 3 on the US Billboard 200 and number 1 on the top R&B hip-hop albums chart, selling over 245,000 copies in the first week. It was certified platinum by March 25th of 1998. Next up is The Lox, with that album Money, Power, and Respect, which released on January 13th of 1998. Then we got Noriega with NORE, which dropped on July 7th of 1998 with his breakout hit Super Thug, produced by the Neptunes. Cameron with Confessions of Fire, which released on July 21st of 1998. Busta Rhymes' Extinction Level event, The Final World Front, which released on December 15th of 1998. Exhibit with 40 Days and 40 Nights, which released on August 25th of 1998. When the album dropped, it went at number 58 on the Billboard 200 and number 14th on the top R&B hip-hop albums chart. Cappadonna released The Pillage on March 25th of 1998. The Pillage debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and topped the R&B hip-hop chart, moving 132,000 units its first week. And it was certified gold by April 24th of 1998. Method Man dropped to Cal 2000 Judgment Day on November 17th of 1998. When this dropped, it went number 2 on the Billboard 200 and number 1 on the top R&B and hip-hop chart, selling over 411,000 copies in its first week. It was certified platinum by December 1998. Next is Pete Rock, Soul Survivor, which released on November 10th of 1998. When this album dropped, it was his first solo debut. Critically, it garnered acclaim for its consistency, ambition, and how the guest features were woven into Pete's musical vision. Next is AC Alone with their album A Book of Human Language, which released on April 14th of 1998. Critics praised it for its ambition, depth, and how it stretched what rap could say. Next is The Coup, Still This Album, which released on November 10th of 1998. When this album dropped, it peaked at number 37 on the Heat Stickers chart and number 51 on the R&B and hip hop chart. Goody Mob released Still Standing on April 17th of 1998. When this dropped, it debuted at number 6 on the Billboard 200 and at number 2 on the top R&B hip hop albums chart. It was certified gold just 1 month later on May 7th of 1998. MOP released First Family for Life on August 11th of 1998. The album reinforced MOP's reputation as one of Brooklyn's hardest duos. While not a mainstream juggernaut, it charted respectably and further solidified their underground credentials. A Tribe Called Quest released The Love Movement on September 29th of 1998. The Love Movement debuted at number 3 on both the Billboard 200 and the top R&B hip-hop charts. The lead single, Find a Way, charted on the Hot 100, and the album was certified gold on November 1st of 1998. Next is Killer Priest with Heavy Mental, released on March 10th of 1998. Heavy Mental peaked at number 24 on the Billboard 200 and on number 4 on the R&B hip-hop charts. The single One Step, sampling Your Arms Too Short to Box with God, peaked at number 84 on the Hot R&B hip-hop chart. Beastie Boys released Hello Nancy on July 14th of 1998. Hello Nancy debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling over 681,000 copies in its first week. It earned them 2 Grammy Awards at the 1999 ceremony, Best Alternative Music Album, and Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group for Intergalactic. Redman released Docs the Name 2000 on December 8th of 1998. Docs the Name 2000 peaked at number 11 on the Billboard 200 and US Top R&B Hip Hop Albums chart. It was certified platinum by February 1999, just 2 months after release. Styles of Beyond released 2000 Fold on August 18th of 1998. DJ Quick released Rhythmalism on November 24th of 1998. Jurassic 5 released Jurassic 5 on June 1st of 1998. Zero released Look at What You Did to Me on June 6th of 1998. People Under the Stairs released Next Step on March 24th of 1998. Though local radio and DJs were slow to embrace it, the album's raw, smart, sample-driven sound and lyrical economy earned them respect. RZA released Bobby Digital Stereo on November 24th of 1998. Upon release, Bobby Digital Stereo had a mixed but fascinating reception. Cannabis released Can I Bust on September 16th of 1998. Can I Bust debuted with strong sales. The single Second Round Knockout became a smash for its explosive energy and self-assured aggression. Critics were divided though. Praise for lyrical audacity, criticism for inconsistency, and production misfires. Guns N' Man released The Last Shall Be First on July 21st of 1998. Commercially, The Last Shall Be First charted respectably. It peaked at number 20 on the Billboard 200 and at number 7 on the top R&B hip-hop albums chart. Next is Daz Dillinger with his release of Retaliation, Revenge, and Get Back, which released on March 31st of 1998. The album debuted at number 8 on the Billboard 200 with over 89,000 copies in its first week sales and peaked at number 2 on the R&B hip-hop charts. AZ released his second album, Pieces of a Man, on October 19th of 1998. While not as commercially dominant as Do or Die, Pieces of a Man was praised for AZ's lyrical consistency, maturity, and refinement. Next is Ice Cube with War and Peace Volume 1, released on November 17th of 1998. War and Peace Volume 1 debuted at number 7 on the Billboard 200 and at number 2 on the top R&B hip-hop albums chart. Critics saw it as some of Cube's harder work post-NWA, though reception was mixed. Some praised his urgency and commitment to political themes. Others felt it lacked cohesion. Black Eyed Peas released Behind the Front on June 30th of 1998. While it didn't break wide commercially, Behind the Front earned strong respect in underground hip-hop circles. Corrupt released Corruption on October 6th of 1998. 8-Ball released Lost. Kool G Rap released Roots of Evil on October 20th of 1998. While the album didn't achieve major commercial heights, it was embraced by hardcore fans and critics alike as one of G's rap's most mature and thematically rich works. Big Daddy Kane released Veterans Day on April 28th of 1998. The album did modest business. It peaked at number 62 on the top R&B hip-hop albums chart, but it failed to reach the Billboard 200. Fat Joe released Don Cartagena on September 1st of 1998. Don Cartagena helped lift Joe's profile. Tracks like Betcha Man Can't Triz and Don Cartagena and John Blaze caught attention, and the album's mix of gritty New York street anthems and crossover hooks made a stepping stone. Rascal released Time Waits for No Man, which released on July 21st of 1998. The album reinforced Rascal's reputation as a non-nonsense sharp pen MC in the indie underground circuits. Next is the Dino Spectrum with the release of the Dino Spectrum, which released on October 13th of 1998. The Dino Spectrum didn't aim for chart domination, it aimed for legacy. It quickly became a cult favorite in underground circles. Wu-Tang Clan released a compilation album called The Swarm featuring the Wu-Tang Killer Bees on July 21st of 1998. As a fan-focused project, The Swarm didn't chase mainstream acclaim. Its value lies in how it extended the Wu world, giving exposure to affiliated crews and preserving the notion that Wu-Tang was more than the 9 core members. Among diehard fans, it often treated as part of the Wu legacy map, not essential for casual listeners, but rich connections and context. Next is Killer Army with Dirty Weaponry, which released on August 11th of 1998. The album landed well for its scale, peaking at number 40 on the Billboard 200 and at number 13 on the top R&B and hip-hop albums chart. It wasn't a commercial smash in the mainstream sense, but among Wu-Tang affiliates, fans, it's regarded as one of Killer Army's high water marks. E40 released The Element of Surprise on August 11th of 1998. Das Effects released Generation Effects March 24th of 1998. Showbiz and AG released Full Scale on May 24th of 1998. WC released The Shadiest One on April 28th of 1998. MC Ren released Ruthless for Life on June 30th of 1998. Brand Nubian released Foundation on September 29th of 1998 as well. DJ Clue released his first official mixtape on December 15th of 1998. Pras released Ghetto Superstar on October 6th of 1998. And finally, Mystical released Ghetto Fabulous on December 15th as well of 1998.